to today's Google Apps for Education Professional Development webinar. We're going to go ahead and get started. I'll be leading this webinar today. My name is Dana Nguyen, and I work on Google Apps and Chromebooks for education. So today's topic is on automating school processes with app scripts. And what we're actually going to be talking about today is through some examples with some schools who will be dialing in and sharing some of the scripts that they use, as well as a few examples that I've pulled up that I found useful and have heard other people using as well. So just to get started and let you know, if you have questions throughout the webinar, I'll try and answer them as we go along, especially with our guest speakers who will be joining us. It would be best if you could ask them in the Q&A box. That's the box with the question mark and the white box inside it. So if you have questions throughout the webinar, go ahead and ask it there. And this webinar is being recorded, so we'll be able to send the slide presentation and the recorded webinar for you to review later on. Let me go ahead and pull up just a quick overview of Google Apps Scripts. So, our main agenda today, we're going to have 3 schools join us and go through some of their app scripts that they've developed. And I'll just go through a quick overview of app scripts. There are plenty of resources for you to find and review if you're interested in learning more, but primarily we'll focus on the actual examples. So we have James Shipman from Lago Vista District out in Texas, and he's going to go over an app script he created for a work order form. And Mark Dunitz from the Academy for Careers in TV and Film will be joining us afterwards, and he will be sharing a bunch of different scripts. I couldn't even quite put them all on the agenda, so we'll be running through those. And Vinny Rodney, who's a Google certified teacher and a Google Apps for Education certified trainer, wrote a script taking information from a form and plugging it into a calendar. And so they'll all review, show you what those scripts are, and go into a little bit of detail of how they put them together. And then finally, I'll close out with a few more examples that I've seen of Google Apps scripts. If you haven't already seen or know about Google Apps Scripts, Google Apps Scripts is basically lightweight JavaScript that acts as a way to connect the different Google Apps products. So for example, you can read and write to Google Docs or Calendar or Gmail and Sites, and it's a way of connecting them all together using some small bits of code based on JavaScript. So there's a lot of really good documentation available. I put some links here. So there's the apps documentation. There's also a great online community, and a lot of the schools that I've talked to have actually used bits of code from this online community to build their own scripts. And if you're having problems creating your script and need help debugging it, this is also a great place to post. It's very active, and there are lots of very knowledgeable people as well. There's also an app script gallery in Google Docs, and I'll show that to you in just 1 second. And there's also the Google Apps Script blog. So you can, of course, do any searches for this and find this information, and I'll share the slides with you as well. But let me just first pull up the app scripts documentation. This is our Google Apps Script homepage. It sits on code.google.com, and then you'll also see that there's a support link. That will take you to the help forum. There's also a lot of great tutorials for you to try out right here in this How Do I Start section. And you can also read the user guide, which has some more information. And that blog that I linked to before is actually right on this page as well, and you can go to read more if you're looking for that information. Now, if I let me go to my presentation here, and if I go to Google Docs and create a new spreadsheet where the app script gallery is, you can go under Tools, and then you can go to the Script Gallery. Oh, I need to name my sheet first, so let me call this Script Test. When I do that, you'll actually be able to see a lot of scripts that people have actually submitted. They've written on their own and submitted and are available for you to use in your spreadsheet. Right now, the script gallery only exists primarily in the spreadsheets, but there's also some ways for you to select them in Google Sites as well, and I'll talk about that more towards the end of the webinar. But then the education category, so if you're interested in following some of those, we've got a few popular ones in here as well. So these are some options of scripts that you can find and play around with yourself. They've already been coded. A lot of times the instructions are in the scripts themselves. So you can peruse the public ones, you can do different kinds of searches, etc. So the last piece that I wanted to show you was the online community, and again, it was linked off of the. If you're on the AppScript homepage, you can either click support or you can click that other link that I showed you. But there's lots of discussions on getting started, and there are lots of discussions that are happening in services. So this is a really great resource for you once you're starting to do your own coding and might need a little bit of help. And you can see right here, there's lots of answers and replies for different questions that people have. It's very active. So I'll go ahead and first let me unmute James Nguyen, and he's going to show our first example. So James, I'm going to give you sharing access so that you'll be able to either your desktop or your browser, and then we can see your examples. So.
All right. I think I'll go with browser since I run on 2 desktops, and I'm not sure how that would translate over. So let's see here. There we go.
All right. I think it's coming up.
Okay.
And, yep, that's great. And if you could make that full screen, that would be wonderful.
Okay. All right. Well, hi, I'm James Shipman here in Lago Vista. Had a need for, when we transitioned to Google Apps for Education, to bring in a lot of the already automated processes that were going to go away with the old system, and so I'm still in process of recreating all of those. But up here are just the few that I've gotten around to getting to. But I was going to show you the order form because it's easiest, but it's also the most useful for us because it keeps us going. So I basically created this form and did it in a website that everybody knows where to get to. And the nice thing about it is that everybody can get to it. But let's see here. I'm going to for a second so you can see basically the spreadsheet that it writes to. This is the main spreadsheet, and the script that basically the process that happens is a client submits a work order, and it comes over here. I can email what you see when I get the email. And at the top here is all the information from the work order, and I just created a dummy work order. And then this is actually a second Google form that I found a way to embed in the email so that I can then assign that to me or one of my technicians. So I'm just going to submit that. Pops up with that, and I can just close that. And I will eventually get another work order saying that this has been assigned to me. There's a couple things I still have to tweak. If I assign a work order to myself, I still get a confirmation saying that I have been assigned a work order. So I need an if statement in there. Okay. So, but that's just little tweaks. But that information.
Oh, James, if you please just close. I think Chrome just popped up with a little Gmail notification. Oh, no.
Yeah.
Just took it out of full screen. Now we're good.
Okay. So the second half of the form writes to this other spreadsheet. That is, no one needs to see it. It's just here for the script that when get saying that this has been assigned to me, now all the information from the original work order, plus I can set to in progress and add details and submit that, or put it on hold or complete it. And what that does is it rewrites back to the main spreadsheet over here, and details actually start to concatenate with a timestamp so that there's a full work order history. Other stuff, and I color-coded it just because I find it easier to navigate this spreadsheet. But I'm here and actually open up. Okay. Scene. I'm not sure. Hopefully it is the code.
That is being seen.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Okay, so I can't really own most of this code. The community, which is fantastic, wrote probably 80% of this from me just asking questions. But actually, when it's submitted, as you can see here, it writes available for each row of, for each column of data at the last row submitted. I have a little thing here that gives it a row ID, or basically a ticket ID, so it's no longer tied to the row ID on the spreadsheet itself. Let's see here, I don't want to scroll too fast, but status to new in the column in the spreadsheet itself, so that there's another function down here that the client gets an email when they submit it saying what number they are in the queue, because they build up quick, and if it's they're 84th in the queue, they know that they're going to get a phone call for a schedule like in 5 minutes. It helps keep things organized. And then all of this here is just building emails with HTML body in it and so that I can send those in chunks basically and build it out portion here. So this is just a thank you for contacting us, and here's the new number, and this is actually built from another one that's further down in the script. There's the details that gets sent to different people. You can actually do a little bit of inline CSS styling, I found, so I've been playing around with that. And here's the other form from the other sheet, and this has taken some time for me to figure this out because I do inspect element when I see the form live, the other one that I created, and then I go just copy and paste the entire form tag email into here, and then you have to format it for for JavaScript requirements and whatnot. And I found that I have to remove my Google Apps domain from the spreadsheet link so that I can take the ticket ID tag label and input and hide it, and just have it feed the variable so that it tracks it from form to form to form, that we don't have to enter it in and possibly get it written to the wrong work order, and then everything gets confused. And these are the other, and this is how the email is built. So this is the to, and it's a variable for me, and then the subject line with the ID, and null is there because I'm using the advanced portion. So if you leave that blank, this actually kind of breaks. So it's looking for a body. So leave it as null, and then this, and then you can just, these are the variables that I built that was just up in here, and these are the other. So this does a great one that I found somewhere. I think it's actually on Google tutorials for finding a column by name, so I can just say teachers or campus, and opposed to giving it a column, this column D or whatever, which is kind of nice. And then others for regular expression to pull our the person's name out of our email, or put their name and build the email. Works either way. Plus also just a thing title case, so that it capitalizes the names and first letter of each name. And that's the main script. The others are a lot more simplistic because it has less to do. Of course, that pops up over there. Hold on. The assign it to. And what this does is basically the same thing. I grab variables from the master spreadsheet because you can do it open ID and pull it from the ID of spreadsheet, and then I write variables for the current spreadsheet, and the same process. I know there's a way to build arrays to do it instead, but this was down and dirty. Make it happen quickly, and I did it this way. This is the same thing. It builds an email. I make sure the time and date and whatnot get formatted so it's not quite the long raw string that's up in the timestamp. And it's the same basic thing. This is the third form that pull in and pull out our domain so that I can hide the ticket ID label and whatnot, and that builds. And that's the function there, that column indexed by name. It's a great one. I love that. I use it in everything. That's basically it. What happens when now this is what happens here, and I have and my two technicians. We just leave these work orders in our inbox essentially, or as you can see, I have filters. And so any details and updates, if it's a longer fix than just plug in a monitor, we can keep adding those details and submit it and whatnot. And then when it closes, the client and I, as the director, get a notification then as well. And then we know it's closed out and whatnot. And that stands now. I do have few plans to have it add stuff to a wiki and add it to their task list, because that API just opened up recently and whatnot. But those are down the road. This has just been getting us up and running for now. So that's what I have.
Very impressive, James. I have to admit, I love the idea of embedding the form in there and having it tied to the ID, so you were getting those updates.
It took me really a long time to figure out, and that was also the community figuring that one out for me.
Speaking of which, I'm sure that a lot of people would be interested in seeing your actual app scripts, the one that you showed us through when you were editing your scripts.
Yeah.
Is it possible for you to perhaps drop those into a Google Doc that you could publish and then I could share with everybody here?
Yeah.
Just so that it doesn't have to be the script itself, just like copy and paste the code. That way some other people can be able to explore it as well in case they want to install their own scripts.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I can do that.
Maybe just for some people who are just getting started, where did you start when you started to wanting to learn how to automate this whole process?
My first stop was the tutorials, and I have a little bit of computer programming background, but nothing in JavaScript, so I knew I was about to jump into completely unknown. So I went to the tutorials, and they were helpful, but there were still lots of gaps that I just started, annoying the community with my questions, and most of them were answered pretty quickly. I kind of jumped in with a big help sign. That's kind of how I went, honestly.
And if any of you who are on the webinar have any questions, feel free to drop them into the Q&A box, specifically about what James has done with his work order system or any of the questions you might have. He's going to jump off in just a few moments, so I wanted to make sure that if you had any specific questions for him, that you would have a moment to do that. So while waiting to see if there are any questions for you, James, I'm going to go ahead and switch the presentation mode over to Mark, so that he can go ahead and get set up with his presentation. So
cool. I'll copy and pasting.
Are you able to share an application?
I am.
Okay.
Let me just something here.
Right. If you have any, we can see it perfectly. If you have any last questions for James, please ask them in that Q&A box. It's the one with the white box with the question mark inside it. I think we can give just another second for any other more questions that may come up. All right, I'm not seeing any questions now, so thank you so much, James. If there are any that do come up in the Q&A, I will send them to James and make sure that those are answered, and that anybody who didn't get the answer would be able to see it in the Q&A transcript.
Okay. And who do you want me to share this document to? Just specifically to you, or
if you could publish it, publish the document, or make it available to anyone with link, and then you can send it to me, and I'll be sure to send it out to all of the attendees here.
Excellent. Will do.
I also pasted into the chat box in case you missed my initial overview slide, I put some links to some of the resources. So the documentation, short link I put in the chat box, so you can go there and start looking at some of those tutorials which James started working on. Also a link to the community where you can go for help. As James said, they're very quick to help you with if you need some more questions on some of the ins and outs of JavaScript. We'll also be hosting a webinar on Monday, the 26th, led by two of our Google Apps for Education certified trainers who will be able to, who are just doing a more basic introduction to JavaScript. So if you haven't done JavaScript before and you want to start looking at app scripts, and this is kind of an introduction to JavaScript for people who really haven't done scripting before. So if you're interested in joining that webinar, I will link to it in the follow-up email, and you can also see it on our website for Monday. So it looked like there was one question here. It said, you like that we can assign tasks to specific users. Have you experimented with a way to get the user's task list added to? So I think that James said that that's phase 2, since we just had the tasks API open up. So I don't think he's that yet, but he is looking forward to doing that.
Yeah, it makes me happy that that's available now, because that's one of the things that I've been trying to find, is some sort of shared task list function without buying something from Google Marketplace.
Well, it's a free resource, and so we encourage everybody to take advantage. And so again, I'll have James share that document with the scripts in case you want to kind of comb through and see what he did. And so there's one more question here about any chance of a database-style Google app on the horizon. So we don't have a specific database style, I think, in the way that you might be thinking. We did just release Google Fusion tables into Google Docs as a beta product. It used to be in Google Labs. It's not specifically a database like a MySQL querying function, but it does allow you to hold much more structured data and query it more powerfully than just a spreadsheet, which can tend to get exhausted more quickly. So I can't speak to a database style. There's also the ability to host things on App Engine. Again, not exactly the database style you're looking at, but tables is something I actually haven't experimented to see if they are yet tied into app scripts, but I imagine they will be in the future. So, and with that, Mark, it would be great if you can share the ways that you guys are using app scripts.
Sure. Thanks for inviting me. I'm going to give kind of an overview of a couple of different scripts that we've been developing. This has been in partnership with New Visions for Public Schools, which is a large educational nonprofit here in New York. And so we are working, most of these are things that have been developed by some of our partners working with New Vision, so I'm not going to get too heavy into what this is actually doing, more what it looks like for the user at our school. So there's 3 sort of areas where we've been developing scripts. One is in creating relationships between spreadsheets. That's for the data to be all pulled into one central location. Largely, these are spreadsheets that are being fed by Google Forms. We use Google's products for just about everything in our school, ranging from operations and some of the things we saw in the last example to student work. And one of the things we realized early on is we didn't want people to have to look across 15 or 20 different spreadsheets to get information about a student, for example. We wanted it all to come to one place. And so early on, as we developed the infrastructure, we used a lot of import range, where we were pulling ranges of cells from one spreadsheet that was fed by a form into another that was aggregating it from multiple forms. And what we learned quickly is that once you really accumulate large amounts of data, it wasn't very efficient and stuff really started to slow down. So what we we worked with some folks at New Visions to develop a script that allows us to really set up relationships between spreadsheets being fed by forms and push that on a trigger to other spreadsheets. So an example would be we have a set of list of our students with some basic biographical information about them and class information, and we want that to be populating a bunch of other spreadsheets where we do tallies of things like lateness to class, class removals, attendance at tutoring. So we want to set up that relationship, and rather than using the import range function, we want a script to really just put data once a day in that case. Our second area is with sites and calendars, and we've really started to move in our school to using sites as the primary repository for curriculum material. So we have a template we designed for courses, and many of our teachers right now are using that template and customizing it for each of their course sites, and it really is sort of where all the curriculum resides. We're also using a product called Teacher Dashboard, which is made by a New Zealand developer, which is in the Google Apps Marketplace, and which creates essentially a course calendar for each section of every course being offered at our school. So that's now the primary place where teachers are putting assignments and due dates on the course calendars, and we found that there was a need to develop some of the scripts to kind of smooth the process and cut down on the entry burden on teachers. And finally, we have some very simple scripts, which are really just modifications on stuff that are in the apps tutorials, the app script tutorials, to kind of make automatic communication of certain information that are logged largely through forms. So I'll show you a little bit of each of this. This was a script that was developed by one of our partners working with New Visions, and really it just takes a modification, I believe, of the script that was already in one of the tutorials, but we created a user interface so that essentially it can be used by folks who really don't know anything about scripts. And this allows you to actually choose how many spreadsheets you want to push data to, and then once you enter, you see I've entered in there. In this case, in the screenshot, and it then prompts you for each of those 10 spreadsheets to enter in the spreadsheet key that you want to push the data to, and the number of columns that you want to push starting at the left. So again, for us, where we're pushing data is into a spreadsheet that looks something like this, where you have 4 columns of data: the grade level of the student, ID number, the advisor, and the student's name, be pushed from one centralized one place where we continually update information to 10 or 12 different spreadsheets where we're tallying information about these students. So then that gets entered here and through this user interface, and then all you have to do is set the trigger and decide how frequently you want it to put the data, and then the data is pushed. This is what our students see. So this is our academic dashboard that we just rolled out, and again, this was developed in partnership with New Visions. And through here, they'll go to a course directory that has a listing of all the courses being offered this semester in our school, and then to a course site that looks something like this. And now this perhaps a bad example because it's a course that's only offered to one group of students. Most of our courses are offered to 2 to 3 to even 4 sections of students. And so each of the sections will have a different course calendar created centrally through Teacher Dashboard. What we wanted to do is figure out how could the teacher really avoid having to go into 4 separate Google calendars every time they create an assignment, but create an assignment centrally and then have the capacity to switch the due date depending on what the section number is. So a custom script, again, was developed by someone working for New Visions that pulls up a user interface that looks like this. So the setting page allows you to choose from all of your different calendars, so the teacher would be able to choose the course calendars, in this case, correspond to each of their sections. And once they do that, the selected calendars will appear every time they enter this widget, which for most teachers is going to be embedded on their website. And then essentially they can create an assignment. They could put a link to a Google Doc, and the URL will be automatically shortened, and then choose different due dates. Well, they could choose which of the calendars they want it to get put to, and then they can actually set different dates for each of the sections of the course. And when they click Save Assignment, this gets pushed to the course calendars. So really, it's a major time saver for teachers that are teaching 3 or 4 sections of the same course that meet different days. Finally, we're using a bunch of just really simple notification scripts. These are for different types of logs. Our conduct intervention communication log is our kind of central log of all conversations with parents. It's also where we do records of anecdotal records of behavior. When a faculty member submits a log for a student in any of the cases here, we have it referencing the advisor for that student, and it will essentially, the script is set to trigger on form submit. It looks up, the spreadsheet has a formula in it looking up the advisor for the student, substance of the actual text of the log with some basic information about when it was submitted, then is pushed in an email, and the advisor automatically receives the information. Same thing with class removals. If a student's removed from class for behavior issues, in that case, it also CCs the administration. Same thing with early dismissals. And then with period and daily attendance disparities, this is an automatic report that's pushed at the end of the day that references our daily attendance versus our period attendance to look at any disparities, which would be a student in potential class. And a report goes out through a script at the end of the day. So those are the 3 main areas we're developing scripts. Although you can imagine these are all pretty flexible tools, so this is just the beginning for us of automating a whole set of processes that we've been doing manually with Google Apps in the school. So we're very excited about it, and I sort of echo what was said here, that there's rarely been a question that you can't find the answer to somewhere searching through the forums, and usually we don't even need to ask the question. If someone else has already asked the question, the answer's already there for us.
All right, Mark. So,
Sure.
question: do you also, the same question I asked James, is it possible for you to share some of the app scripts that you've written? I think that calendar widget is great for people who want to embed that on their sites for their teachers. Is it possible for you to either send me the link to the code that you have, the XML gadget, so other people might be able to take advantage of some of the work you guys have already done?
Should I ask Andrew Stillman from New Visions to share that with you, since it's one that they developed? He's on the line.
I see him in the conference, so
Great.
definitely ask him. And so we still have Mark on the line to answer any questions that you guys might have about some of his examples. But that Andrew says no problem, he can share that. So in addition to James' scripts, which I'll send out to everybody here, I'll also be sure to get Andrew's script out there as well. So any other questions for Mark? Feel free to ask them in the Q&A box. Mark, I don't know, maybe if you have, from all the ones that you showed, just while we're seeing if anybody has any questions, did you have any that were your favorite scripts, that are the ones that you kind of wanted the most, or maybe the ones that were the trickiest? Or
I think I don't think of them more particularly tricky. I think the calendar widget, we went through a bunch of iterations, and I think we finally got it right now. The notifications on form submits that are just sort of pulling information submitted to a form and send it to a particular person based on who the student's involved have proved to be extremely useful for us. It cuts down tremendously on the need to be seeing each other and sort of remembering to share information. So that's been really sort of one that's been most consistently implemented at this point. In terms of the scripts to push data around, we're just in the process of really taking an entire infrastructure that was based around using kind of import range and other workarounds, and using this script to automate some of that stuff and streamline it. So we're in transition right now. We're really excited because it really, I think, has a promise in terms of making making this stuff run more smoothly. And as I said, for our school, we really run almost the entire organization on apps. So we see a bright future for it.
So there is a question that came out about what about pre-populating form drop-downs? How is the form info on students keyed to the master student list?
Well, we haven't found any very elegant solution to that. We would love to have a way to pre-populate it from a master list. At this point, we are reduced to using a keystroke order that records a cut and paste operation and speeds down a form every time we want to update it, and we do that periodically, but that has to be done with each individual form. So if anybody has any ideas about how we can pre-populate drop-down menus with students, for example, we haven't found any solution to that.
Yeah, I'm wondering if maybe you and James can get together since I was actually leaving, so I just sent him a thank you for him before he left. James might be able to collaborate since he's got his work order IDs and is able to somehow continually update that same work order. I wonder if there might be a way for you to student ID and then things be able to just continually update to that one student somehow. But that's for another time. So, well, thank you so much, Mark, for sharing. And we actually have Vinnys, who's one of our Google certified teachers and Google Apps for Education certified trainers up. So, Vinny, I just made you the presenter, so you can go ahead and bring up any the spreadsheet and site that you were going to share. Vinny's going to talk about, he wrote an app script related to taking form information and plugging it into a calendar. So somewhat similar to Mark's calendar gadget insights, except this is using form data.
I'm just testing, and is my voice okay?
Yep, hear you just fine.
Great. This is a new computer microphone, so I just wanted to make sure. Thank you, Dana. To give you, those of you who are here, a little background. I work at an independent school through 12th grade. When I stated I am both a certified teacher and a Google certified trainer. What we're trying to do is we're trying to take a calendar, which is something that we use in our high school. So any major assessments.
It appears that you're breaking up a little bit. Did you dial in from your? You're wondering if maybe you can done one more time. It appears that you're breaking up a little bit, and we're having a difficult time understanding you.
Okay, I'll go ahead and do that then. So just 1 second.
And so Vinny is actually redialing back into the conference. I'll just chat really briefly about some of the other resources that I'm going to share so I don't know how much time that we'll have. But 3 other things, ways that I've seen some teachers and schools use app scripts is there's an app script on assignment uploader using Google Sites. So it plugs in, you have a embedded, I believe, onto a site, and it automatically uploads into a certain collection that you have. And then we also, there's another script that one of the actually wrote just in his own free time called FluAruz, and that has to do with auto-grading assignments. And then the last one that I was going to show once Vinny's done all these links is a form emailer script that is developed by an independent guy. But if you want just a simple script to automatically email people after they submit a form, this is the one that you can use. So, Vin, is that you? Are you back?
Great.
It's still a little garbled, but let's see how it goes if you keep talking.
All right, sounds good. And again, we just deployed new computers, so this is the first time that I've been doing it on this. What we have had in the past is a single test calendar for each of grades 1 through 12. All the tests, all major assessments, paper projects are put into this test calendar. It's out parents, students, that they know and can plan for their work. In that, we had a single individual responsible for maintaining and managing. This was our secretary. So he asked if we wanted to put something on the test calendar. What we did is calendar, and then he put the test calendar. And then, it went from there. So we wanted to do make a change for two reasons. The first of which we need to take the responsibility off of that secretary.
Vinny, unfortunately, we're still having a hard time hearing you. Do you think that you could actually try dialing in via a cell phone or a landline? I can actually pull up. In the meanwhile, I can actually pull up the script that you're using on my machine while you redial in using the using a landline or a cell phone, and then hopefully we'll be able to hear you a bit better. We're waiting for Vinny to come back. In case you guys weren't able to understand exactly what he was saying, he was talking about he works for an independent school district that has grades 9 through 12, and this is the same website that Vinny was showing, which is his calendar script, and talking about being able to populate different calendars for the different grades that they have. And it's about kind of like an automated test calendar. So he has this form embedded on his site, and that you're able to select which grades it affects, what start time, the date, some of the other information that you need to put in to create a calendar event. So let me see. Has Vinny got? Vinny, are you back online? I don't seem to hear him just yet. And so unfortunately, I don't have the script, the spreadsheet that goes along with this as well. But we'll actually do this information. So you have your name, your email address, and you and I believe that in his block, since they're on a different block schedule, he automatically knows kind of the day that it's associated with. And then he matches it based on the date and the start time and the other information, is able to create calendar entries based on this form.
Dana?
Oh. Okay, so I was just reviewing a little bit of your script, but I think it's best if you go into some more details over what details you collect and how they connect into the app script and into the calendar.
I can have control of the desktop there.
1 second.
Again, so this is the visual genesis. So what we wanted to do this summer also was break the test calendar into 4. Now, I shared a particular URL, and what you'll see is if you want to dive into the actual app script, if you click this page, this gives the current version of the app script, which I try to do as best as I can to document the actual steps, but I made this step in here so that you can take and recreate this. The script looks back from the spreadsheet view. You go into the live form, you'll see our actual script has been changed a little bit in that we've also added a field trip to build all day event into this particular calendar. This is a user enters in the various different aspects, and notice that it's required and the grade level of the students in their class, and then click on submit. What we'll do is it will go into the script, which again we can from version. It will set the connectors to the various different characters. It will the various different the spreadsheet pull data, and then just pull the data. The last columns which are created from the information which was entered to the script. They work with the script. So we take the block designation plus the course, and then the assessment type, and that becomes the title. We take the date and time. So we'll go into the calendar at the right time. And then for us, the description was very important because we wanted to be able to tell who entered the event and when and what time. Because we only want to allow for 3 major assessments for a student. The student can take a look and see which is the last of the assessments that were added if I need to take a look at that. This was triggered by a process. So go into the tool, to the script, it will pull the script. I need that one of the new things that you can do with scripts is you can set a trigger for script so that you can choose to have it whether it's run from the spreadsheet or whether it's time-driven. So what we've done is we've set this one up as a time-driven script. So that it's hourly timer, or then we can do a day timer or a week timer. So how often do you want the script to run, and how often do you want this to run? So we have this particular script to run automatically in the background every hour, so that it will go up, see are there any new entries. New entries, it will go through, create those new fields to start and end from, as well as and then add it to the appropriate candidate based on whether that student grade has been flagged with a yes or no. You'll see that there's one more field that is added, so therefore that it knows that this particular item has been into the calendar. Therefore, it goes through all of the entries in the council form. Been added before the company ready processing within that. That is then triggered calendars on and off of it. Coming from this calendar, and then we're going to turn on. So these are now all of the events, which are our test calendar. I turned off my 10th grade calendar. So you'll see that it's worked fairly well. You'll see that weeks ago we had a field trip, which was, again, because it's a field trip, it designates it as an all-day event within the script, and uses this JavaScript code to add an all-day event as opposed to a time-based event. We've been really pleased with what a couple things that if you want to take a look in the issues, there are a couple things that we had to struggle with in terms of the way the form data, spreadsheet data captures the information. What that we wanted to make sure in the script was we didn't have people enter time in their time, so that we wanted to do the automatic conversion. So you'll see how we're able to do. There's an interesting quirk in that it shifted time. If we just entered the form and then we had it fill calendar, we were finding that the people were shifted an hour and 24 minutes off. And so that has made us have to do is to do some time conversion. And then some JavaScript. And this was the trickiest part, was to construct the new site using JavaScript constructors. But we have all the documentation here. You have an example of form spreadsheet with an example of which you can look at, and then you can access the current version of the calendar script within it. So here's an example, and then here's an example. If you fill my it's going to figure it out after different events.
Okay. Thanks, Vinny. It seems like we still were having a little bit of trouble hearing you, but I think that by seeing the script and having you go through all the other pieces of that website, people will be able to understand what you were talking about. And again, I'll send out that information of Vinny's website along with some of the other links that I put in the chat. I'll send that out in a follow-up email for everybody as well. So now just in the last few minutes, I wanted to just show some other examples of the ones that I was talking about. So that an assignment uploader in that education category, and I linked to it actually. And this is a document that Erica Hartman, who's a Google certified teacher and a Google Apps for Education certified trainer, put together. Talks about how you can actually create a system that allows students to do online submissions of their work. So this is a question that I'm often asked by schools and teachers who want to have some kind of submission process, more official submission process for students, but still want to use Google Docs as back end. So basically, you can follow these instructions. It's in this app script gallery, and you can actually, within the sites now, you can actually go into sites and add scripts. When you use that editor, you can change it. So if you just follow the instructions here, you basically look for the folder names. You make sure that you have matching folder names as your variable here, as the name that you create in your Google Docs. And you're able to just insert that app script gadget and then set the permissions, and then you'll be able to have that. So you could have on different pages or different sites for different sessions, automatically go into a collection that you're interested in having the students submit to of their own. So another one that we can show, let me pull it back up here, is FluAruz. So this is another popular script that many educators have started utilizing. That was actually written by a Googler in his 20% time. Basically what it does is it's an app script that you install for every form that you have, and it makes it so that it will grade the assignments and also email them out as well. So there's an overview here. It's very simple if you just follow the steps that are here, where you create the assignment and an answer key, and then the FluAruz script will both grade it, assign it, send it out to people, grade it, and then have some other things that come up as well. There's a video that's very helpful, and we've also done some other webinars that have reviews of this as well. So let me go back here again. So somebody was asking for the assignment uploader link. Oops, I had it right here as a short link. I'll paste it into the chat box as well right now. So uploader instructions. And the last one is one that I've actually used myself, and I've heard some other people use as well. So if you want to be able to email people as soon as they submit a form, this form email is a popular script. And it's a little bit more complicated than adding those other scripts because they already exist in the gallery. But this one you can go ahead and go to, if you go to the update and load his most recent attachment, if you open that in any kind of text editor, you can copy what's in his script and then paste it into the script editor. So for example, if you download his form editor, you could go into script editor, you could have it here, and then you would just simply delete this and paste what he has in that other file. So you would open the file in a text document. And what script does is it's already kind of set up. There's an easy sub tab that he has available that allows you to automatically email somebody with the information that they filled out in the form. You can also easily remove parts of the form if you don't want the parts of the form to be set out as well. And so he's got a fairly thorough getting started document, as well as a little hint on how to do some of the formatting in HTML. I forgot it's on this page. So the presentation will be shared with you, as well as the other links that Mark and Vinny and James shared. So hopefully you guys were able to find a few more ways that you might be able to start experimenting with app scripts and how you might be able to use them in your school. We have a few minutes left, so if anybody has any questions, feel free to drop them into the Q&A box. Or else I'm happy to also send you guys all of these resources and, again, a recording to this webinar. So any questions? Oh, I'm not seeing any last questions. So, again, I will email out all this information to you. And thank you for joining us today. Oh, wait, one question. Waiting for a question here. Waiting for any last questions. I'll just go ahead and pull up that overview slide again if any of you missed it. have some of the sources here. So the documentation with app scripts, place to start. They've got tutorials on there. That online community where there's a very active group who are willing to help you debug and find ways to improve your own scripts. And the blog. There's actually a good one in there, if I can pull it up. Versity set one up. I just have to do a quick search. Looks like it's not doing the search for it. Let me just do one more search here. Brown. Here we go. This is another example of a script that you might want to use. So this is from the IT department at Brown University, and what they wanted to do was create events based on a vacation calendar. And so it just basically helps when people are away, it would then modify the emails that they were sending out. So she actually details how they did that, how she did that with app scripts here, and I'll paste this in the chat box as well if you're interested in reading a little bit more about how Brown University was using app scripts. One question here about are there better ways to access the logged in user's info to present custom content? And so that I am not sure about from an app script perspective. I think there's somewhat of a limitation based on that data. That you would, if you're looking for much more custom information, you're probably better off moving towards using our APIs and building light programs off of the APIs, like something that might appear in the Google Apps Marketplace, as opposed to just an app script. An app script tends to be more a simple of movement and creation of data, and not necessarily the other preferences within a user account. However, I am not going to proclaim myself an expert, and that might be a good question for the Google Apps Script community in terms of asking exactly what the extent of user information that's available. I believe you go to the app script. Let me go to the here, and you go into the full user guide. You'll get all of the overviews of exactly which services you can access and how much. So I don't know that off the top of my head, but you can explore exactly the level of preferences and things that you can dial into. Well, thank you everybody for joining us today, and again, we'll send you an email with all these resources and hope that you were able to find something new to try at your school with app scripts.